Tangipahoa Parish School Board meeting to order for January the 5th, 2021, very first meeting of the year. Roll call, Ms. Cindy?
Ms. Richards? Mr. Toler?
Here.
Ms. Abrams?
Here.
Mr. Westmoreland?
Present.
Mr. Duncan?
Here.
Bush?
Here.
Mr. Moore?
Here.
Ms. Simmons? Ms. Dominguez?
Present. All right, if everyone would please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Mr. Toler, can you lead us in the pledge?
No, I got it. Laranja High.
Oh, I'm sorry. We do have Laranja High School that will be presenting on our screen, if you would have a look up top.
Please join us as the Laranja High School student body leads us in the reciting of the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, that was quick. Laranja High School will
Please
also have
join
a
us
patriotic
as
song
McKinnon
for us.
Okay.
It leads us in the singing of our national anthem.
You see by the dawn's early light, once so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight, o'er the ramparts we watched, were so gallantly streaming. In the rocket's twinkling, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave.
All right, we're going to move down to D, considered approval of the board minutes from December the 1st, 2020. Do I have a motion?
Yes, ma'am. We have a motion.
Mr. Bush?
Second.
Motion. Mr. Westmoreland, second. Vote, Ms. Cindy?
Voting is open. Yes by Mr. Moore. Voting is closed. Motion passes unanimously.
All right. Moving down to E, consider setting the day, time, and location for the 2021 school board meetings. I think it's been asked that we do our committee meetings on the first Tuesday of the month and our board meetings on the third Tuesday of the month.
I make that in the form of a motion.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Glenn, second by Tom Toler. Vote, Ms. Cindy?
Voting is open. Yes, by Mr. Moore. Voting is closed. Motion passes unanimously.
Moving on to 2, consider committee reports. A motion for the Finance Committee that was held on December 1st, 2020. Do I have a motion?
Move to adopt the report.
Second.
Vote, Ms. Cindy.
Voting is open.
Yes.
Yes by Mr. Moore. Voting is closed. Motion passes unanimously.
Move to accept, need a motion to accept the Personnel Committee on December the 1st, 2020.
Make a motion to accept.
Second.
Motion by Ms. Dominguez, second by Mr. Toller. Voting.
Voting is open.
Yes.
Yes by Mr. Moore. Voting is closed. Motion passes unanimously.
Moving to C, Policy Committee of the Whole. We need a motion from the December 7th, 2020 meeting.
Make a motion to adopt it.
Mr. Westmoreland made the motion. Mr. Toller, second.
Voting is open.
Yes.
Yes by Mr. Moore. Voting is closed. Motion passes unanimously.
Moving on to our board action. A, a presentation from Mr. John Kubion from JMC Analytics and Polling on a recent polling data concerning possible tax proposition.
I have it.
Perfect. Good evening, Superintendent Stilley, Madam President, members of the board. My name is John Kuvion. I am the president of JMC Analytics and Polling. I am a pollster who has been in the business for 10 years, and I wanted to talk tonight briefly about a poll I recently conducted at the request of the board. And for those of you who did not hear me speak in the 2017 retreat, I wanted to give a little bit of background about the 2017 poll before, of course, I segue into the 2021 findings. One of the things that was a lot different about the 2017 poll was that we had a different focus in terms of what we wanted to put on the ballot. So 4 years ago, the idea was what level of property tax millage that voters were willing to accept. And based on the findings from that poll from 4 years ago, there was a laundry list of several items after which the board decided there were 3 of them that were appropriate to place on the November 2017 ballot. And of course, as we all remember, none of those 3 proposals had passed. Now, the thing that was different about the 2017 proposal was the question was what level of property tax there was that voters were willing to accept. And on that poll, 41% said no to any level of property tax millage. 45% said they would accept some property tax millage. So it was a different conversation that we had back then. So for this poll, we changed our approach somewhat. The conversation shifted not to the amount of property tax millage, but attitudes about taxation in general, number 1, and number 2, whether that tax should be a sales tax or a property tax. So given that the parameters were different in the poll that I conducted last month, and the focus was different, one of the things that was discovered really quickly was that sales taxes were much more palatable to the Tangipahoa Parish electorate than property taxes were. And given the 4 choices we presented, then of course part of the 4 choices was to gauge the level of support and or opposition there was to taxation to benefit the Tangipahoa Parish school system. The numbers from that poll question, I think, were quite encouraging relative to the 45-41 split I had alluded to from the 2017 poll. More specifically, in the question where we asked if there was, in general, support or opposition to taxes that would go to benefit the school board, only 10% flat out said no under any circumstances. 38% said yes, always. Another 23% said yes, depending on what the intended use was. Of course, we're talking about possibly teacher salaries, building renovation, or building maintenance. So in other words, you're already talking about a more favorable base of support for taxes than there was 4 years ago. More specifically, when we talked about 4 possible options of taxation that the voters were willing to accept or not accept, the numbers were all good, but to varying extents. More specifically, when we're talking about the sales tax being the most popular one, you had majority support, whether we were talking about a half cent or a whole cent. When we were talking about property taxes, the support was plurality. And of course, my attitude is when you're talking about a tax issue and you're talking about plurality support, the risk is in what the people who are undecided think. And of course, you have to have an actual campaign before we really know what voters think in the April 20th election. But given that the numbers, there were 56 to 29% in favor of the scenario of the full cent sales tax, which would go for a 7% salary increase and repairing, replacing buildings, a half cent sales tax that would go purely towards a 7% raise for all Tangipahoa Parish school employees, that had 51 to 27%. So those were the 2 most popular options of the 4 that we had polled. Doing a 35 mil property tax that would go for buildings and for the pay raise, that had 44 to 36% support as opposed to the 56-29 if it was a sales tax. Similarly, when we're talking about a half cent tax versus a 17.5 mil property tax, the sales tax got 51 to 27% support. The property tax got 41 to 36% support. So the conclusions I would have based on being here for 2017 when I worked with half of you on the board and versus the time that I had conducted the poll last month is that number 1, I think shifting the conversation to sales taxes as opposed to property taxes helps the numbers somewhat. Number 2, I think the climate is more favorable for the school board than it was 4 years ago. And number 3, my thought is whatever it is that the board decides on, it has to be very specific as to what the monies would go for if such a tax were to be placed on the April ballot. And that concludes my presentation. I'd be more than happy to take any questions from the board.
John, I don't have any questions, but I did want to thank you for your work and also wanted to let everybody know that in addition to your presentation today, that you did produce a multi-page, I don't know, was it 13, 18 pages?
13 pages.
13-page report for us that provided us with a lot of excellent data, and we appreciate that, as well as just you've made yourself available for multiple conversations with us as well. So thank you for your work and all of the data that you've provided for
I
us.
have one question.
Okay, Mr. Westmoreland?
What do you think the effect of having a congressional election also will do to these numbers, since we'll have a bigger turnout for the new congressional on that day?
So basically, the parameters we have to think about when we're talking about the congressional election, almost certainly that race would go into a runoff. Now, in terms of what it means for the turnout, one of the things I do recall for the 2017 election is you'll remember that we were competing with the treasurer's runoff, and we had 18% voter turnout from what I recall. I would suspect, since we're talking about a congressional runoff as opposed to a treasurer's runoff, the turnout would be somewhat higher, but I would not expect it to be at the same level that you would have, say, for a Senate race or a governor's race or anything like that, unless, of course, you had any other, say, municipal elections on the ballot. As in my experience, I've found that municipal elections tend to draw a lot more people because, of course, people typically, especially if you're talking about, say, a Tick Forward, an Independence, or a Baptist, or a place like that, they would typically draw a larger voter turnout because people know both of the candidates. I would not expect a much higher turnout than the 18% who turned out in 2017, but it would help, but not to the extent that it would with it being like a statewide election turnout.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Bush?
Hey, John, in 2017, when you did this poll, did you ask those similar questions that you asked on this one about the people? Because you just said the favorability of our school system now is greater than it was in 17.
Right.
Did you ask those same type of questions? You know what I'm talking about in that section?
Right. The questions were not exactly the same because the conversation was different. What had happened in 2017 was, from what I recall, and Brett can of course correct me if I'm off, you basically had a consultant who had multiple recommendations about things to put on the ballot, and we poll tested those multiple things. It was from that poll that we determined that 3 of them had sufficient popularity to be brought to the voters.
Yeah, I'm thinking more of the questions about our school system, because favorability, excellent, good, bad,
Right.
and we seem to, we polled pretty well,
Right.
fairly well, but did you ask that same question in 2017?
Not in the exact way,
Okay,
no.
okay, thank you. That's what I'm-
Anyone else? Okay, thank you, Mr. Gouvion.
Thank you, John.
All right, we're going to move down to B, which would be part of this tax proposition. Consider whether to publicize and announce that on its February 2nd, 2021 board meeting, the Tangipahoa Parish School Board plans to discuss the possibility of placing an ad valorem tax proposition on the April 24th, 2021 election ballot.
Madam President, I would move at this time that the board vote to direct the administration to take no further steps towards pursuing a property tax.
Second.
Yeah, and I'll take the second. I haven't seen any appetite within my constituency for a property tax. In addition to receiving the poll results, I just don't see the need for pursuing that any further at this point.
Okay, Ms. Cindy, there's a motion that we not pursue a property tax on the April ballot, and it was seconded by Mr. Toller. Do we need to vote on this? No other discussion? Anyone?
Voting is open.
Just before we take the vote, how did you exactly word that, Brett?
This would only deal with the idea of a property tax. And so this would be that the reason to publicize an announcement that we might consider voting on that on February the 2nd is to kind of leave that door open, but it requires that we send out notifications to the legislators and publish things in the Daily Star and all of that. So my motion is just that we don't take any of those steps and that we just close the door to pursuing any sort of property tax at this time.
Okay. Cindy, could you read what it is that you're?
Sure. Motion to direct the administration to take no further steps to pursue a property tax.
Okay.
For the April.
For the
April 24.
2021.
Okay.
That's a good clarification.
Okay.
All right, so this is a one-time?
Not indefinitely.
Yeah, just for that one.
Okay.
one time.
It's on there.
Right, I vote Ms. Cindy. Anyone else? Any comments?
Voting is open.
So a vote yes.
Yes. Disagree and not do it.
Yeah.
Voting is
Double
closed.
negative.
Motion passes unanimously.
Okay, we're moving on to C, which my understanding there should be no need for a motion on this, but consider a resolution for requesting action by the Educational Facility Improvement District of Tangipahoa Parish concerning the placement of a sales tax proposition on the April 24th, 2021 election ballot. I think we're going to make a motion on this at our next board meeting. Am I correct, Mr. Duncan?
Yeah, it's my understanding that we're not taking any action on this at this time. but I didn't know whether anyone wanted to speak on
Yeah, I
it.
think we do have some public input on this particular. Miss Amy?
Good evening. Good evening. Yeah, I was kind of confused when I saw this on the agenda because they're meeting tomorrow, and then I didn't really understand how that committee or whatever they are feeds into your decision on what you do as a board, whether or not to go for a tax, whether that be sales or property. And I know the polls are randomized, because I was not polled in 17 or in 20. But I just, and I know you have to do what you have to do to get something passed because our district needs money. But personally, I'm not a fan of the sales tax. I would much prefer a property tax. But I know that you're going to do what you're going to do. And you know, I wish you guys the best. I know taxes are very touchy in our parish. I get it. But I know that our school system needs the support. And I just hope for the best for you guys. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Brumfield.
Address the question that she raised.
Sure, go ahead, Mr. Duncan.
So, because it isn't clear based on what's on the agenda, but the Educational Facilities Improvement District will not be deciding tomorrow on whether to call an election. Instead, they will be doing, initiating various notices and all of that stuff for a meeting that will take place in early February, and that is when they will decide officially whether to call an election related to a sales tax. So at some point, if this board wants to let that district know, what their preference is, we will still have another meeting or an opportunity to do that. We're just kind of, going through the various steps to ultimately have that district make a decision at a meeting in early February.
All right, we're moving on to D. Consider approval of an industrial tax exemption for Pratt Delta Container, Inc. Is someone here to speak on?
We got one guy coming up and lady.
I'm sorry, I didn't have your name on my agenda.
Good evening. My name is Ricky Venable. I'm sales manager with Pratt Industries. This is Tanya Morrell, one of my sales reps. She represents this area, by the way. So we'll just give you a quick background on who Pratt is and what we do and why we're here. We moved from Jefferson Parish recently because the facility we were in was landlocked and we needed to grow. And, I'm sorry. So we needed to grow from that facility. So did an exhaustive research for what was the best location for us, and we picked Hammond right next to the airport. Logistics, environment, the climate, and personnel that we were trying to recruit seemed to be a good fit for us there. Pratt is a corrugated packaging manufacturer. We're completely integrated, and we produce 100% recycled paper. So we take old boxes, make new paper out of it, turn it back into boxes that we sell to our end users. Our facility in Hammond does the final process, taking the corrugated sheets and turning them into boxes that you get from Amazon or most anything that you buy off the shelf that has a box. So that's basically what we do. That's our background.
Any questions?
We're dedicated and 100% focused on sustainability, by the way.
Any questions from the board?
I'm sorry. Sir, I know we met, and some of these questions you've already given to me, but if you could give these answers for the benefit of the public, I think that would be helpful. First, I guess just address how many jobs you have brought to Tangipahoa Parish as a result of moving here. So how many new jobs are now in Tangipahoa Parish?
So right now we're officially stating 51 jobs. I can tell you it's a little bit more than that, and we're in flux right now because we're already growing. but we're on the books at 51 jobs.
Okay. And the application is to exempt 80% of new or expansions, is that right? There's a portion of your application that you're asking that we exempt, but there's also a significant amount of property that is not going to be exempt. Can you just outline that for us?
Right, so the numbers, Ruben has a better handle on that, but I can tell you, right, we'll pay 20% the first 5 years, right, Ruben? Yes. And so I believe the property was generating, what, $500 prior, and now it's going to go to $8,500 even with the exemption.
But then there's also equipment and inventory that is not going to be exempt, correct?
That is correct.
And that's a significant number, I believe.
Yes, there's about 2.7 million of equipment that was transferred from the old site, and therefore it's not eligible for the exemption. So that's going straight off the rolls for the next year.
Okay.
As well as about 275,000 a year in inventory tax.
Okay. And we have an item on our agenda that's after this one. Are y'all related to that item as well?
Yeah, so the ITEP applications are split up into two twin applications because the landowner, the landowner for the real property and real property improvements, and then Pratt is the property owner for the personal property. So because there's two different landowners technically, there's two applications.
Okay. So all of our prior discussions, it's really for both of these items.
One project, two applications.
I got you. Okay. Thank you.
Anyone else?
Yeah, one quick question on this. Some of the things that we get asked as board members, a lot of people just think that we're just giving you a check to come to Tangipahoa Parish, which we understand that's not how this works, and especially those of us that are in business. But for the general public, they think this is a tax incentive, that we're just writing you something. So two numbers that I would like to make public if you have this. What will this savings be for you on the taxes, for instance, in a year's time? And then the second thing is, what are you planning to pay as far as sales tax on all this? What are you going to pay in taxes? Does that make sense?
Well, just for the property taxes, this is a spreadsheet I think that the board may have. So this is a 10-year exemption. So for this new investment, there's this 80-20 split. So it's exempted at 8%, and 20% of that goes straight to the tax rolls. After 10 years, the entirety of the investment goes to the tax rolls. In year one, the amount that goes on the tax rolls, the school board, just for the school board millages, you're looking at about $800, $8,900 in taxes, going up from $600 a year for just the bare land prior to the project.
Right.
And then you're beginning in, I think there's a break-even point basically after 10 years when the exemption expires, where the money you're collecting surpasses the money you've exempted. And that ends up being around year 14. So from year 14 and out, you're collecting above and beyond the total amount of what you've exempted over the first 10 years.
So 14 years is what it would take for us to balance the books on that as far as the exemption.
Just straight property taxes.
Right.
Now, there's also other taxes, sales taxes, et cetera, that come into the local coffers because of the new employees.
Right.
But this is just straight property taxes, any other taxes looking to that. So that break even actually moves up further when you consider sales taxes from these new employees. There's employees that are moving into the area, so there's additional property taxes on the homestead. But this is just strictly property taxes, that 14-year break even.
Right.
Anyone else?
You need a motion?
Well, I do want to ask, so the employees that you have right now at your facility, are most of those employees of Tangipahoa Parish?
I'm sorry.
The employees that you've hired, the 50-some employees that you have, are most of them from Tangipahoa Parish?
Most of them, or the majority of them, transferred over from Jefferson Parish. We have a number of them that have moved and are in the process of relocating.
Okay.
All of our new jobs are being recruited from Tangipahoa Parish.
So it would be right to say that these people that are going to be living here and spending their money here, building homes here, we would benefit, if we do pass a sales tax, we would benefit from those people that are moving here and working for you.
Absolutely.
Certainly. And I'd like to add that, Pratt's, our MO is to grow and grow quickly. So some of the numbers are conservative, I would say, on some of the inventories and even equipment. Our expansion capabilities are really great at this new location, and that's one of the reasons we chose it. So we're not in the business of just operating status quo. So we will be growing, and we intend to add more jobs, and we intend to bring in more people for, we built a state-of-the-art plant that we want to showcase to not only customers, but the rest of our company. So we expect to have a lot of travel, a lot of folks coming in and out for, hotel stays, restaurants. So we intend to showcase Hammond as our new home and a great place for not only Pratt, but other industries.
Anybody else?
I'm sorry, the parish has already approved your application as well as the sheriff, is that right?
That's correct.
Okay.
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask as part of the timeline as far as where do we fall in this, because we've had these before and we've had some heated discussions on them, and I know you understand the position that we're in. We're going to the public now, and we're asking the public for more funds and more support. So as someone who's pro-business, I want to support these. I know the chamber wants to support these. We need businesses growing in our parish. It's just hard when we tell our customers, our parents, that we don't have the funds. So we're going to the parents now. So it's just one of those hard situations, but we're glad to have you in Tangipahoa Parish.
Well, if I may speak on behalf of Pratt and also as a mom, and then just to be able to be in this community, the 51 employees that were transferred over, some of them will move here and others will not. We go to lunch, we have lunches brought in, we have visitors, so we're spending money here. I know personally, I'm spending money. I'm shopping, I'm telling friends that I'm like, have you been to downtown Hammond? I know, so people are, myself included and others, are telling others and bringing friends in here to enjoy this area. So the word is spreading.
So I'll make the motion at this time to approve the industrial tax exemption application for Pratt Incorporated or Delta Container Incorporated. And then
I'll second that motion. But you got to quit saying Hammond. Ponchatoula's where it's at.
Well, never mind. Never mind.
So Mr. Duncan made the motion and Mr. Bush seconded the motion.
Welcome to the green wave world. That's what I want.
And Madam, I would just want to point out the big difference to me on this application versus previous ones that we've had is that this is an application that is bringing a substantial number of jobs with it. And in addition to that, it's bringing taxable property, which has not been part of previous applications. The non-taxable portion or the non-exempt portion of this application is quite significant versus some of the other applications that we've evaluated. So this is a true economic development application that I think we can be proud of supporting.
I think I would just say that, Pratt's dedicated to sustainability, not only on the environmental front, but on the community front as well. You'll see us being very involved in any projects that we can get our hands on in the schools and in the rest of the business community.
Well, we know y'all will be in business for a while if everybody keeps ordering from Amazon like they did over the holidays. Making boxes anyway. All right, go ahead, Ms. Rose.
I just wanted to do a little bit of clarification because it's the next item on the agenda, but you said these are related. So this next one is the property owner. You are leasing, you've put your facility on his property, and you've spent $2.7 million on equipment that's not tax exempt, 10 years, 80-20 split. Just want to clarify, before we do vote, but is there, somehow you could explain why is the property exempt as well? Because that's a substantial amount of money, too.
It's the improvements to the property. So
The improvement to his property?
Yes, ma'am. The land itself is never eligible for exemption, but it's the improvements to it. It's anything from the foundation to the building itself. That's what's covered by the second exemption.
Okay, not necessarily the land.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, that's what I wanted to clarify. So what you've done to his property to improve, not warranting the equipment, but actual improvements to the ground, to the building, to the facilities is what we're exempting? Okay, thank you.
All right, call for a vote, Ms. Cindy, if no one has any other further questions.
Voting is open. Voting is closed. Motion passes unanimously.
So we're going to go down to E, which is consider approval of the industrial tax exemption for Gmail Inc., which is the property we just spoke about, so they go hand in hand.
Move to approve the industrial tax exemption for Gmail Inc.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Duncan, second by Mr. Bush. Any questions? Call for a vote, Ms. Cindy.
Okay, just 1 second. Voting is open. Voting is closed. Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you all.
Welcome.
All right, we're going to move on to superintendent's report and recommendations, but we do have a public input that would like to speak prior to this, to B. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I can do A.
You go ahead and do
Yeah.
A. Mhm.
Thank you,
Ms.
Madam.
Stilley, can I interrupt real quick?
Sure.
Do we have did Devontae win the Heisman yet? Does anybody know that? Has it been announced? I'm sorry. I've been looking at my phone. Is anybody still checking?
We'll let you know.
Okay.
Not
Good.
announced.
That's important. Not more important than you, not the Heisman Trophy versus Miss
I get it,
Stilley.
Mr. Bush.
I got it. Okay. Anybody find that out?
Welcome to being president, Miss President.
Yeah, okay. Can we call this meeting to order? No, I'm just joking.
Okay.
Oh, Tom Toller, you know you love me.
I know I love you.
Item 4A, consider approval to refer policy BD, the school board policy, to the policy committee. This is a recommendation from Forethought in alignment with Act 48. So I'd like to get a motion to refer that to policy.
I'll make a motion.
I second it.
Made a motion by Ms. Rose Dominguez, second by Mr. Westmoreland.
Item 4B, we haven't got,
Vote on it.
oh, I'm sorry. Trying to get to, so we can watch the Heisman.
Ms. Cindy, call for a vote.
Voting is open. Voting is closed. Motion passes unanimously.
Okay. Item 4B, we do have a presentation on social emotional assessment of students and staff by Dr. Hurst and the well-being team. We have a public input item for that.
We do. Ms. Patricia Morris.
Happy New Year to all of you.
Good afternoon.
Good evening. Madam Superintendent, Madam Chairperson of the board, fellow board members, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for the opportunity, and this is addressed to you, the board, and to Mrs. Stilley. On behalf of TAS's Social Emotional Learning Program, thank you. I wish I could stand here a long time and tell you how well the program is working and how the kids are benefiting in a positive manner for them. It feels good, it makes you want to cry when you can go to Walmart's, you can go to the post office, and you can see a parent, and they can tell you how well their kids are doing because of that program. It makes you feel good when parent I had one this afternoon at the post office saying, thank you for the years that you put in, but especially thank you because my child would be in Outward Bound, and that behavior that was there is no longer there. You don't know how good it makes all of us feel on behalf of the workers at task, on behalf of our director, I guess that's his title, Director Mr. Perry, and all of the efforts that we put into making sure that kids know how and the importance of being kind, compassionate, respectful, most of all, being great in anything they need to do. Ms. Stilley, from the bottom of my heart, I know where your heart is. Thank you for doing that. On behalf of the children who will be our future leaders, what we're doing, what you're doing, and before I sit down, I want to invite you all, the next time we have a Zoom conference on a Friday, I'm going to ask Mr. Perry if he would invite all of the board members to Zoom in so that you can hear for yourself what it is we're doing. We are also going to start interviewing kids and let them tell you via the media, Ken, what it is and what this program means to them. These are kids who have behavior issues, who had behavior issues, but that's becoming a thing of the past. So we thank God and we thank you for what you're doing. Keep doing the great work.
Thank you, Ms. Moore.
Thank you, Ms. Moore.
Okay, now we're going to do our presentation. Dr. Hurst?
Good evening, Board. Ms. Stilley, thank you, Ms. Morris, for that. I can attest that y'all have been doing a great job at task with those students. What I'm here today is to explain what the district initiative is as far as addressing our SEL and our students in our parish. We have partnered with a company called Panorama, and their mission is to help educators act on data to improve outcomes for students. And this is going to be for every student in the parish, not a select group. Panorama has a team of 150 people supporting 1,000 school districts and 9 million students across the United States. Their focus areas include building each student's individual competencies, create an environment where students thrive, and develop teacher and staff SEL and well-being. This is a district initiative that we have started, and I'm going to explain how we got here. So the pandemic came in March, and we all went home. So the state realized that they needed to do something to support school districts on the well-being of all students in every district in Louisiana. So in May, they provided a space for school system leaders to share ideas. So we had weekly calls talking about, we're coming back in August, this is what we need to do for all our students. We need to assess them, we need to provide some interventions for them, but how are we going to do it? And we did, the way they set it up, we had weekly calls with school districts across the state, and everybody shared ideas on what they were going to do from surveys, what they're going to do with the data with their surveys, and also what they were already doing in certain districts. As a result of our work this summer with those school districts, Tangipahoa Parish was selected one of the 5 school districts to participate in the well-being implementation cohort. Our goal is to help develop the model for school districts to follow in the future. So Tangipahoa is one of 5 parishes or school districts in the state that is part of this cohort, and we're developing the blueprint for school districts across the state to utilize moving forward. Since May, we have met weekly with our district team throughout the summer and the fall. We partnered with Panorama in December to assist us with this work because they have the experience, they have worked with millions of students, they have worked with hundreds of school districts, and we realized that we needed some assistance with this because it's a large task. The funding source is Title IV funds from the federal government. Our goals and mission in Tangipahoa Parish is, this is our why. We want to understand directly from the students and teachers how they feel about their own social, emotional learning competencies. We want a way to support individual students as well as universal Tier 1 supports. And we want to empower the schools leaders with data to take action to support students and teachers in relationship building. So this program is going to help us assess what a district is as a whole, It'll help us assess what each individual school is as a whole in the spring, and we'll talk about that more in a minute. And then eventually, we're going to be able to assess every student in the district and see where they are for their social and emotional learning. The team is very diverse, including myself, Mr. Gary Porter, Director of Student Services, Ms. Lisa Fasell, Director of Academics, Amy Fairchild, Denise Latour, who's a high school counselor, Crystal Hooper, who's a middle school counselor, Tiffany Edwards, who's an elementary school counselor, and our two social skill coaches, Ms. Tucker and Ms. Nelson. So the team is very diverse from across the district. And today I have with me Ms. Crystal Hooper and Ms. Amy Fairchild to explain the program and what it looks like. So what we did this fall, we did the pre-planning. What we're going to do in this spring is launch the surveys later this month, and we're going to review and act on the data. And then in the summer and the fall, we're going to survey, we're going to plan again for the following school year, launch surveys to assess our students individually, and then review the data and act on it. And they're going to explain more what that looks like.
So first I want to talk about the survey that we're launching in just a few short weeks. So we want to take a broad look at our district. We want to hear from both our students as well as our staff. We're going to be looking at the overall school climate, the perception of the students as well as the staff at every level, the teachers, the school staff, the district level staff. And we also want to look at the staff-student relationship. So we're going to look at 2 slides that look at the content areas that will be questioned in the surveys that are given. So for our student survey that's given in just a few short weeks, it'll be for our grades 3 through 12. Content topics include teacher-student relationships. So an example question, this is going to look at assessing how strong the social connection is between the teachers and students. An example question in that section of the survey would be, how many of your teachers are respectful towards you? So our students, grades 3 through 12, will answer that. The next topic is sense of belonging. So this is going to look at how much our students feel they are valued members of their school community. An example question would be, how connected do you feel to the adults in your school? Another topic is engagement. So this is going to ask students how attentive and invested they are in their school. An example question from that section would be, in your classes, how eager are you to participate? Another content area is cultural awareness in action. So our students are going to be asked how often they learn about, discuss, and confront issues of race, ethnicity, and culture in their school. Now that is going to be for our 6 through 12 students. It's not going to be grades 3 through 5 ask those questions. We're going to look at supportive relationships. Are there adults on their campus that they feel they are supported by? And then we're going to look at the overall school climate. We're going to look at the perceptions of the overall social and learning climate in the school. An example question from that section is, how pleasant or unpleasant is the physical space at your school? So we believe that the 3 to 4 questions in each of those areas will give us a great perception of how our students feel on their campus, how the school climate is, and how they see their relationships with the staff that they work with daily. And then our focus on staff. So we are seeing some of the very similar topics that we asked our students. We're going to be asking our staff to complete as well. So some of those very same topics are belonging, cultural awareness and action, school climate, well-being, and it's going to be geared toward the teacher and their colleagues. Some of the different topics you'll see, instead of the teacher-student relationship, you'll see that it says staff leadership relationship. So this is the perception of faculty and staff regarding the relationship with school leaders. An example question is, when you face challenges at work, how supportive are your school leaders? And the other topic is teacher self-reflection. So just as we ask students about their engagement, we want to hear from teachers as to their perception of their own professional strengths and areas for growth. Now, for the students, that will be linked to our on-course system. So we will be able to differentiate data from demographics linked to their on-course data. Our teacher survey is going to be anonymous. So there will be a link to schools so that the district can look at school feedback, but any other demographic questions will be optional for teachers to complete. And I'm going to let
evening.
Good evening.
So what do we do with this? Get a survey, what do we do with it? Well, it allows us to share insights so we can identify the strengths and weaknesses of our parish. It's going to allow us to bring connections together. Where are we strong within the parish? What does the community look like for us? It also empowers our teachers and counselors. Right now, if you had a question about, I have some kids that are struggling in self-management as a teacher, you may have to ask your colleague, if you're a new teacher, you may have to ask your colleague, you may have to ask someone in the building. This gives us a resource where the teacher can go straight to, how do I help a group of students that are struggling with self-management in my class? There's a growing network of stakeholders that are invested in the program, and they're constantly updating information so that we have access to these resources. It also bookmarks data for us. So if you go into it, you start working with little Johnny and Sally, and you notice that he's going to go over to see Ms. Hooper later. Ms. Hooper can look and see that Johnny and Sally have been doing this work with this particular teacher as well. So we have the flexibility to do that. It tracks the response rates. So when we launch the survey, we'll be able to see, oh, Greenville Park's got 50% of their surveys completed, but Amite Elementary only has 20% completed. Gives a big push. You can give incentives, whatever you need to get the results going. Compares us to the national benchmarks. It allows us to see a hard look at where does Tangipahoa Parish fall within the national schools. All the schools that they're assessing, it gives us a reality, a snapshot of what does that look like for our district. Self-management, social awareness, grit, self-efficacy, and growth mindset. It points out where does our district fall. And you get to understand the survey results by group. So if you wanted to know what the student-teacher relationship is with African American males based upon our survey results, you'll be able to go and look and get a snapshot of that. This type of data allows us to bring funding. This allows us to bring in more programs and supports within our community when we have a snapshot of what that looks like.
So once we get that broad global picture, then we want to hone in on our students' individual needs. So in the fall, once we assess our results and we put into a plan of action by the end of this semester, we will have a turnaround. Those results will be in within 2 weeks of the completion of the survey, so we can really hit the ground running and get some things in place before the end of the school year. Then we can start preparing for the fall, and we can start looking at those individual student needs. And it will also be based on teacher perception. So whereas our broad school climate perception is looked at for grades 3 through 12, when we look at individual student needs, we're focusing on pre-K through 12. So you'll see here where the data that we get back from those questions are going to be for the school overview at the district level. You'll be able to look at your schools, like Crystal was pointing out. How is Amite Elementary? How is Greenville Park? Then there's also going to be individual student profiles. So you can look at a classroom. You'll see on the left, they start listing the names below. So this is a school overview. Then you can start seeing those individual students. So a teacher can begin grouping where there might be a need that's identified in a certain category. When we look at the categories for individual student needs, we're looking at those individual competencies for social emotional learning. So you'll see self-efficacy, self-management, grit, emotional regulation, learning strategies, classroom effort. So teachers will be completing these surveys on their students, and students will be completing the surveys. So then the comparison that you have in the fall is we can see how students view themselves and then what their teachers view about them. So then that gives us some insight into the dynamic of the classroom, and it also helps us to provide for those individual students that are struggling. When we look at that type of support, you can see how it's even graphed by color. So you're looking at a tiered approach. So when you see students that are in red, they have high need. You can group those students. It gives the teacher or a counselor the ability to, okay, these students may be scored in red in self-efficacy. We can group those students in my classroom and then I can pull some interventions, with Crystal's going to touch base on, to work with them on those specific interventions. You'll see at the bottom where it says create support plans. Plans are built in. So if those students may benefit from a check-in, check-out, or they might benefit from a restorative circle, we can put that on their plan, and if that student moves to Ponchatoula, then in Ponchatoula, that teacher can pull them up, and we'll be able to see they were benefiting from a restorative circle. We're going to make sure we continue that.
All right, interventions. This is actually my favorite part, because as a counselor, you always want to let people know, what do you do? You give resources. And so the playbook that Panorama allows for us is an online professional learning library of evidence-based and research-based SEL interventions. Resourced from expert organizations vetted by Panorama's team for CASEL alignment. CASEL is known for the social emotional learning. Assist school leaders and educators in moving from understanding data to taking action and implementing SEL. One of the things that I really, really loved is we have new in our parish distant learning. We're doing that brand new. So they're providing resources for us on distant learning, right? We're struggling with engagement. We're struggling with kids at home. We can go here and look up, okay, how do I help this kid? How do I assist them? Diversity, equity, and inclusion. Nationwide, we're dealing with diversity issues. We're dealing with racial tension, those type things. Here, we'll be able to assist our staff and students with having those conversations, doing that work in an age-appropriate way. Adding depth and breadth to SEL data. Track school-wide strengths and growth areas in SEL topics. Monitor student growth. When we do this survey in the spring and then do it again in the fall, what a great way to see our growth. A great way to see our deficits, where we are now, where we want to go, to set goals for the year, identify students in need of targeted SEL supports and interventions. We're looking, again, a raw look at what does our parish, who do we have right now, what's happening, where are our kids struggling. Create student groups based on SEL data and student demographics, plan supports and interventions. That's, again, what do we do with it? We're doing this work, but how do we move it forward?
So as we conclude, we have a key session on tomorrow for our school teams who are going to administer the survey. The principal selected the individuals. And we plan to open the window for the survey on January the 18th to February the 5th, I believe. And once we get that data in, we're going to analyze it as a district team to provide a plan to each school, and schools can take that individual data and we'll assist principals in developing a plan for their school to address the competencies that they have at their site. The company has been very supportive from day one. We have our own team that work with us, so we are ready to move forward with this, and we just appreciate the support of Ms. Stilley, and this is really going to assist Tangi in moving forward. Do we have any questions from my team? I do have two other team members sitting in the back. Did y'all stand up? I cannot take, they've done all the work. I cannot take any credit from researching the company to developing what topics we were going to address, to developing how we was going to roll it out. So they have been a great asset to this district, the whole team.
Very impressive.
Devontae won.
Yes, Devontae.
I'm saying. Very impressive with your demonstration, Dr. Hurst.
I don't want to.
It is crazy.
We have a Heisman Trophy winner from high school graduate, guys. I mean, can you get some more of that? Can y'all make some more of that?
I heard I know he's a model young man. Programs like this will help students who are struggling and get them to where he is.
Mr. Duncan?
Yeah. So one thing that just stood out to me and I wanted to ask you real quick was you talked about at some point in this process having the ability to develop, I guess, social, what did we call it, some intervention plans for each student? What's the?
Support plans.
Support plans, okay. So within our staff is going to be tasked with developing those individual plans for all of these students?
So that's one of the beautiful things about this particular company, and one of the reasons why I decided to go with them is because they already have a slew of evidence-based practices. So if a teacher has a student that is marked red, right, they score red in self-efficacy, then she can go to self-efficacy, and in the playbook, they call it, there will be a list of interventions. She can narrow it down to, I have a third grader who struggles in this area. Not only that, if she's a new teacher who doesn't have maybe confidence in social emotional learning, it will show her the difficulty level of each of those interventions, and it will also provide a script to support her in conducting that intervention with that student.
And those are great tools, but I guess, so the answer to my question is that we're going to be expecting our teachers to develop these plans for each of our students using the technology and resources that this provides, is what you're telling me.
Yes, sir, Mr. Duncan. Now, that focus won't happen until fall of 2021. Right now, the focus is on the district. So the team that I have, we will develop a plan for the district to address as a district as a whole, and each principal will help them develop a plan for their school. So the only thing teachers are going to do at this point is help us administer the survey.
And that's what I'm getting to, is thinking ahead now at a board level. If we know that this is something that we're going to be adding on as a task for our teachers, our understaffed counseling groups and all of that stuff, I mean, what do we need to be thinking about as far as additional resources and staffing to assist with that? Because I can imagine that our teachers are going to say, look, I already have a tremendous amount of paperwork and things that I need to be doing. You're now adding an additional task. And let me pause on that, because I know that all of our great teachers already fully understand that social and emotional connections with their students are absolutely vital to being able to connect with them and teach them. Our great teachers already know that. They do it instinctively, they do it greatly. But adding on the task of going into a computer and creating these plans for each of their students and documenting for their administrators that they have done this task and all, that is creating a lot of extra work on people that don't have the extra time to do that. So what are we going to do as a district to help them do this? I'm not saying the task isn't important. It's great, and I know it's going to be a resource to them, but you know, this is another, what I'm seeing is we've got another box.
Putting something on their plate.
Yes.
Yes.
So what can we do to work on that, or can we think about that?
Yes, sir. We are definitely thinking about that. So when the state came to us with this over the summer, with their initiative, that was one of the things that came up regularly, was how are we going to ask our teachers to do anything else? And that is why nothing was rolled out this fall. That's also why we're looking at the bigger picture for the spring. One of the questions that we're looking at for the spring that our staff are going to complete are how confident are you in addressing social emotional learning? And then when we see that information, I think this information is going to be very eye-opening for our district as to how prepared are we to address these things. That's why we did not choose to address individual needs at this conjunction, because we are fully aware of the needs that are going to be in place. And so we're going to have to use the data that we get this spring.
So the purpose of this initial assessment is to figure out what sort of additional supports we need to be thinking about so that we can get to that point. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
I'd like to add as well, when you have a student that has a behavior issue in a class that needs support, before they go up to a SAT team, the first thing the teacher is to do is to begin to implement interventions, to track data, to see, okay, what is the kid doing, what learning, you know, where are they as far as learning style, are they on level with the other kids in the class? Right now, those teachers are creating interventions and they're developing something in order to try and benchmark where they are. If you're a 5th grade teacher and you notice this kid is on possibly a 3rd grade level, they're having to go back and create or invent something. Here, you're going to have a playbook of things where they notice, okay, self-management, they're struggling. This area, they're struggling. This area, they're struggling. They'll be able to bring those things to the SAT team as they begin to get those kids assessed and assist them along the process, if they need to go IEP or 504, whatever that is.
And I get it, and I appreciate everything what you're saying. And like I said, I'm acknowledging that I know that our great teachers already know that they need to be doing this. What I worry about, having been here 10 years now, is every time we have a new system or a new program, there's a danger that we're just creating more work rather than actually putting something in place that is helping the foot soldiers on the ground. And so if we're doing this, I want us to make sure that we're recognizing on the very front end that this has got to be done as a tool that is actually going to help these teachers accomplish what and I'm hearing that that's what y'all are doing all of that. I just wanted to make sure we talked about it and addressed it.
Yes, sir, Mr. Duncan. It is a tool, and everybody will have access to it, from all the counselors to all the administration. We don't want to look at it as something just for the teachers. It's going to be for every employee that comes in contact with a student, even the mentors at TAS. Everyone is going to have access to this information. So if a student is read and he or she is having behavior issues, everybody who has access to this that's dealing with that student can go in and say, hey, this is what the student scored, so this is what I can provide for that student. So we're going to assist teachers. So I don't want teachers to think it's just something just for them.
All right, now I got one thing I'm going to quit because I obviously had too much caffeine. Because you mentioned everybody's going to have access to it. I'm assuming that this technology is also going to have tons of privacy protections in place, and that it's already built into the program that only people who are supposed to have access to all of this information will have access. Is that?
Yes.
Okay.
Our technology department vetted them, and they signed the contract. So if I'm a teacher, I only have access to my students. If I'm a principal, only my school. If I'm a counselor over 3 schools, only those 3 schools.
Any other questions? All right. Thank you, Dr. Hurst.
Thank you, sir.
Dr. Hurst, don't go too far, because Item 4C, presentation of donation to Crime Stoppers. Dr. Hurst.
Yes, board, a couple of years ago, we developed a partnership with Crime Stoppers in an effort to give our students and our families an outlet to report anything that was going on that's going to jeopardize the safety of our students or our campuses. And it has been a great partnership. So I want to invite Ms. That's fine. I might add Ms.
Alexis DeCorbier and Kathy Reed.
Come on, Ms. Alexis and Ms. Kathy. Ms. Hookfin is also a part of this board. She apologized.
She did.
She couldn't make it tonight. But I'd like Ms. Stilly and Ms. Abrams to come up. So every year in October is our anti-bullying awareness month, and we do a free dress day in order to raise money for Crime Stoppers, because they have been valued partners with the school system for the last few years. And through their help, we have stopped a few things from happening on our campuses because of the anonymous reporting. So we have collected, it was kind of down this year because of the pandemic. So we have a check for you, and we're still giving to you for $2,393.
That's fantastic.
Still in there, Glenn.
You're still in there, so you might as well sit down. It should look like you, like, it's worse. It's worse, you just need to.
It looks really bad.
Now, Miss, you can't cash that. Here's the actual. Would you like to say something?
I just want to say my board and I value our partnership in helping keep our schools and students safe. I look forward to when I can go into the schools and work with the kids one-on-one. But thank you for this.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, moving on to 5, we're going to do personal privileges. I'm going to start over here with Mr. Westmoreland, but before he speaks, I think his family is here tonight, Miss Stilley. If his family could stand up and recognize Mr. Glenn Westmoreland's
The
family.
in-laws and outlaws.
I would have to say my husband's still stuck at North Oaks Hospital working, so that's why he wasn't here tonight.
Goodness.
All right, go ahead, Mr. Gold.
All right. Well, we got a new year. This starts our third year. You can't hardly believe it's been 2 full years starting your third year, but we've made improvements. I know we made improvements. Mr. Kuvian told us about how the faith in our system is getting better, and that's what we plan on doing, is continuing the faith, building $27 million worth of new buildings and buying schools, and we plan on giving our employees their raises. We're going to get that through in April. I'm prophesying somewhat to that effect, but I believe we're going to be able to do that, and from there, we'll continue making our system a very good system, and compliments to Ms. Dilley and her team as they continue to do the same. Thank y'all.
Mr. Toller?
Yeah, I'll state the obvious, that the president's chair looks a lot better this time than it did for the last year. But I would like to congratulate Ms. Abrams and Mr. Westmoreland on taking the reins, and I know they'll have a great year. So congratulations, and we look forward to working for you and working with you. Also like to congratulate the Smith family, who may meet. What an accomplishment to have someone local win the Heisman Trophy. He beat a lot of odds to win that tonight. So congratulations to his family and to his extended family, the entire Amite High School, the coaches, the teachers, and all those that helped him get where he's at. So congratulations.
Well, I guess I could repeat exactly what Tom just said about the Heisman Trophy winner.
About it looking better?
No, about.
Oh.
No, we are proud at Amite High School and all the people there. I know Devontae is very excited. I know he's won several other awards this year too, so he's made quite an impression on a lot of people. We're really proud of him. Also, I'd like to congratulate Ms. Abrams. Looking forward to a great year. I know you're going to be a great leader because I've seen you in action for many years. And Glenn, of course, we're glad to have you as our board vice president. We're looking forward to a great new year. So with that, I'll give Mr. Jerry a turn.
Okay, and I'm going to be very quick. I want to congratulate Ms. Stilley and Dr. Hurst and the staff. I think that the social emotional assessment program that you guys are implementing is going to work great. In fact, I see a lot of things here that are going to contribute to the concerns that I have about the distant learners. And so I'm very encouraged about that. I also want to express appreciation for the faculty and staff at TASC. I know that you guys have done a great job, Pat, while you were up speaking. It was a testament for me as to how far that program has come. You know, Taran has done an excellent job, and the staff there has done an excellent job in helping those children turn around. I mean, we're actually turning kids around and putting them back on track. So I really appreciate that. And for all the teachers, when coming back, I know that this has been a very stressful year, and I think that it's really an outstanding accomplishment that you guys have made it through it. So with that, I'm going to stop and give one of the other board members a chance to speak.
Mr. Duncan?
Good job on your first meeting, and
Thank you.
very excited about the news for Mr. Smith. But I think I've said enough today.
Mr. Bush?
Yes, thank you. Miss Morris, isn't your daughter an Amite High School graduate? Yes. And she's an attorney? Yes. Our governor's an Amite High School graduate? Devontae is an Amite High School graduate? Here's the point I'm making. You can do everything you can say about our school system, but if you do not go there and take advantage of what we have to offer and give your all, because there's no way I can believe we can produce Heisman Trophy winners. My son never made a B at high school, punches a little full scholarship at Southeastern. Miss Morris' daughter's attorney. I can list numerous people. When our community starts believing that our own homes are just as important as the schoolhouse Say it like this. My house is just as important as a schoolhouse. It's a community relationship. It's 50-50. So I want our whole parish to listen. You have to do your part at home. These teachers and our staff and our people can just do so much. We work together as a team. And you can go to Boning's, my favorite store in Ponchatoula, and it's a beautiful store, and you bring no money, you're going to get nothing out of it. But if you go to Abilene High School, and you apply yourself, you can be the governor, an attorney, or the Heisman Trophy winner. And I think that's in every school in our parish, and I think people need to start realizing that. Thank you so much, Mr. President. Amen.
Ms. Stiller? Nothing? I would like to say, I'm telling you, you did great, Mr.
That was really good.
I would like to say that I want to thank the board for putting their faith in me to be president this year. I did not get to come to the last board meeting, and it was due to that I had COVID, so that's why I wasn't here that week. Did well with it, and I hope everyone that has gone through COVID did as well as I did, because I didn't have a bad case of it. But I also would like to extend our sympathy to an icon in La Ranger. For those that knew Miss Joyce Chambers, she passed away last week, and she was 99 years old. She was very much an icon in La Ranger. She was a basketball coach, she was a teacher, she was a counselor, many things in La Ranger, and everybody is going to sorely miss her so much. To Devontae, we thank you for being a representative of Tangipahoa Parish. You did so well, and we're so proud of you. You know, we all had to be Alabama fans today. You know you did. But
you wore the colors.
I did wear this because of that. But I wanted to thank you all again for your faith. And with that being said, we're going to move into executive session.
Ms. Abrams, yes, okay, I have to say this, otherwise I'm not going to be able to go home. I just want to also congratulate Devontae. He has a super fan in my home. And for me to not congratulate him, I know I had a bunch of other things on my mind, but I want to personally congratulate him myself.
All right.
And Robin, also, Janice texted me today. We all know where she's at tonight. Her family invited her to the Heisman Watch. So they invited just a select number of people, and Janice got invited to that. So obviously, I tried to invite myself. They said no, so I'm here, and she's there, and she got to watch it with Devontae's mom and their family, and I know that was a special thing for her.
Yep. So we're going to move into executive session.
We move that we enter executive session to consider the case of Ella Foster versus Tangipahoa Parish School Board. That's all I got to say. I need a second.
Second.
Channel 17, proudly serving the Florida parishes.
Duncan?
Move to adopt council's recommendation.
Second that.
Motion by Mr. Duncan, second by Mr. Westmoreland.
First or last?
Just say all in favor.
All in favor?
Is yes.
Yes.
Yes. Yes.
It's going to be on the
Motion passes.
Motion passes. The first meeting of 2021 is now ended.